Department of Education, no more. Put it up full mass. Trump has signed an executive order eliminating the Department of Education. So he set to sign this long-anticipated executive order Thursday that seeks to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education, delivering on the campaign promise to completely dismantle the Department of Education. Keep the picture up. This is so extreme because no one was checking for this. No one was voting for Trump to dismantle the Department of Education, not even MAGA. If you look at MAGA polling data, those that self-identified as MAGA and Trump supporters, or even conservatives, AKA Republicans, they would say things like cost of living, okay? The economy. Some of them even said stock market. But nobody really had the Department of Education on the chopping block to such a degree to make it a first priority. So Trump is expected to sign the order, which has been in the works for weeks, at a White House ceremony attended by several Republican governors, state education commissioners as well. Trump would direct his education secretary, Linda McMahon, who has no experience in the field, to take, quote, all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states, according to a White House summary of the order reviewed by USA Today. It also calls for, quote, uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. Okay, however, Trump's efforts to shut down another department has been blocked. Trump's order, which is almost certain to invite legal challenge from the left, sets a new test for the boundaries of presidential authority. After Trump's administration's effort to shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development were blocked this week by a federal judge in Maryland. So the department, established as a cabinet-level agency by Congress, this happened in 1979, will not close immediately with Trump's signature. Eliminating it in its entirety would require an act from Congress. Harrison Fields, White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary, said in a statement to USA Today, the order, quote, will empower parents, states, and communities to take control and improve outcomes for all students. He said recent test scores on the National Assessment of Educational Progress exam reveal a national crisis. Our children are failing or falling behind. Federal funding for students with disabilities under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Title I funding for low-income schools, and federal student loan payments will remain unchanged under the order while McMahon works on a plan to, quote, bring these funds closer to states, localities, and more importantly, students, the White House said. Under the order, education programs or activities that receive, quote, any remaining Department of Education funds will not be allowed to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion or gender ideology, according to the White House. Okay. Republican governors Ron DeSantis of Florida, Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, Greg Abbott of Texas, and others are expected to attend this ceremony. Now, before I continue, let's explain what's really happening. Many of you know I work as a college professor at multiple universities. This is what actually is going down. This is not the elimination of DEI. It is the rise of white supremacy. The disguise of eliminating DEI is a ruse. What they're attempting to do is create a platform that allows those who are still currently in charge. Because remember, through the diversity dynamics associated with not only public institutions, but private institutions, those who are either A, people of color, or B, women, were starting to have the leadership roles that they deserved. They are stopping that from happening. So right now, their guys are still squarely in charge, statistically, okay? They are freeing up their guys, white males in particular, to continue doing the things that we said holistically were wrong to do in the 1960s, to hire based on race bias. They are eliminating the barriers, allowing a rise of white supremacy to come back and to come back with a vengeance. Now, how do they plan to do this? They don't have a plan. They have no plan at all. We're having meetings damn near every day in higher education trying to figure out what to do. Already research programs are dried up. You have major research organizations connected to federal funding. They don't know what to do, which means PhD programs, doctoral programs from medical institutions and beyond, shutting down now. Why? Because they have to project what's happening to them. They have to make a plan just in case there's absolutely no funding. So things are happening today. Things are happening now. All right. Put a full mask. The Trump administration is pausing $175 million in federal funding to the University of Pennsylvania. Why? Because of its transgender athlete policies. The White House announced Wednesday in the Post on X. Reminder, Penn made headlines in 2022 when a trans athlete, Leah Thomas, competed on the women's swim team and went on to become the first trans woman to win an NCAA swimming championship. Now, for those who may get bent out of shape about that, they're utilizing an anti-discriminatory clause. When was the last time a university lost all of their funding or was penalized to a degree of $175 million when they violated a discrimination clause against, let's say, a Black person or a brown person or a member of the LGBTQ community or a woman? My point is, these technical violations, these disagreements between the federal government and a local school, local institute of higher education, they happen routinely. There are scrimmages here routinely. But to penalize the entire educational system and every single student there because of their political bias and their current disagreement with an institution is utterly insane. And for those who are watching this, I hope you see it for what it is. This is not some benevolent way to create a policy for the MAGA crowd to be happy. This is a way to justify shutting down institutions that teach. And they're utilizing this university because if they can get away with it at the University of Pennsylvania, they can get away with it at an HBCU. They can get away with it at your local community college. They can get away with it at your local tech institute. That's the reason. Okay? All right, the Post said the Ivy League universities' policies are, quote, forcing women to compete with men in sports and ended with the Trump tagline, promises made, promises kept. A spokesperson for the University of Pennsylvania said that it is aware of media reports about the suspension, but the university has not received any official notification or details. That is the Trumpian way. No letter, no official anything. Well, it's official. Well, he put it on X. That makes it official, right? All right, Jackson, thoughts here.
Well, really what we're looking at is the culmination of a process to cut public access to social mobility, because things like going after the Department of Education have long been in the background of the Republican agenda. Mind you, Linda McMahon donated $20 million to Trump's campaign, so that's how she got that job. One of the most corrupt administrations in American history. But going after public access to social mobility makes it such that you can subjugate your opposition and make things like healthcare and education, and I mean, even access to good roads to get around, access to good food and water, to make that more and more of a privilege and less of a right, so that your opposition has less power to go after you and threaten you. Sacrificing the future for a war that they've long lost, that culture war being the adherence of white supremacy, and shunning and stunting the growth of minority communities, whether that be black communities, brown communities, the LGBTQ community as a whole, which is a very pervasive community, because you can't necessarily tell who's gay or bi or trans just by looking at them. These people come from every community. So just the attempt to put the cat back in the bag, you know what I'm saying? To put the toothpaste back into the tube, sacrificing the future by going after public education. I mean, this department, well, I got some stats here. They will $33 billion to public schools for low income students, 12 million plus students with grants and loans. Like, this type of stuff cuts off our ability to participate in the workforce with the rest of the world. What, 54% of American adults read at or below like a fourth grade level, uh, which points to the public's lack of the ability to critically think, which is a generational issue. So this just is not a good idea in any way when you look at the stats of how we compete with the rest of the world with like math and science and reading and what have you. But again, the only real logical way that this makes sense is, like I said, cutting off public access to social mobility so that you can subjugate your opposition.
Yeah. And this is a workaround to basically get rid of the separate but equal dynamic. When that argument was made, it was about resources. And the opposition argued, yes, we can actually maintain these institutions that are segregated because we can utilize the doctrine of separate but equal. What they're doing is eliminating the federal administrative dynamic for these resources, which will mean you go back to a de facto separate and unequal policy, which was the very policy that we fought in the 1960s and beyond.